The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining in. We still have a few minutes to go, so we'll just wait for others to join in and then we'll start promptly. Thank you. Hi everyone, we'll give it another minute for folks to join in, and then I'll hand it over to Greg and we can promptly start. Thank you. Please stay tuned. Right. Thank you for joining in, everyone, and welcome. My name is Paresh. I'm going to be your moderator for this webinar. Before I hand it over to Greg, I would like to inform you that you are currently on the mute mode. In case you have any questions, feel free to use the chat functionality. We will be taking some questions at the end as well. So if you have any questions along the webinar or at the end, please post them on the chat, and we'll be happy to take them. Um, so I would like to quickly introduce Greg. Greg Baxter, Senior Vice President, Customer Experience Team at edynamic. He has spent 21 years living and breathing digital now. Before edynamic, Greg spent 8 years at Sitecore, leading business optimization strategies in global and regional capacity. Greg specializes in writing strategy to drive business uplift using Sitecore's marketing capability. And today we are going to talk about how to use Sitecore to build a revenue engine. Very, very interesting topic. So, Greg, over to you with that.
Thanks, Paresh, and thank you everyone for attending. I am super excited to present this concept. To me, it's the real culmination of why you would purchase Sitecore and what you can do with it. And it's really interesting. Yesterday I was reading some stuff from Forrester, and there was a report about how the CMO role is evolving to a thing called the CGO, which is now the Chief Growth Officer. So I think that really underpins how important revenue is in the world of marketing today. It's no longer about brand amplification or increasing social reach. It's very much about creating a marketing machine that measures and drives revenue for companies across the board. So companies like Coca-Cola no longer have a CMO. They now have a CGO. And I guess that is a trend that Forrester considers will continue. So today we're going to talk very much about, if you're a Sitecore user or a Sitecore owner, how you can move from a publishing mindset to an engagement and revenue mindset, and really be able to walk into your board and stakeholders and say, our marketing efforts for this quarter directly lifted revenue by X%. A little bit to start about edynamic, just a couple of slides before we get into it. We're a global digital marketing and revenue focused agency, and this has really grown out of our core capabilities around customer engagement. You know, in the past we measured engagement, and now we're connecting that very heavily to revenue, because that is the coin of the realm. How do we turn MQLs into sales accepted leads, and then how do we track that through to full financial outcomes? edynamic, very quickly, we've been a gold partner since 2003. We have 200 staff members plus. We have 4 MVPs on staff right now, but I believe that number will lift. Sitecore will make their announcement tomorrow about MVPs, and I think personally I will be a very happy camper when that happens, and you can read into that what you will. We've delivered over 200 projects. In the United States, we're based in New York, Atlanta, and Boston, so we have a good reach. We are opening an office on the West Coast in early February, so our growth continues in North America. We're really noted for our extensive MarTech integration capabilities. We recognize that the marketing is not about one stack necessarily, and many companies have an investment in things like Eloquent, Marketo, Pardot, various CRMs and so forth. So the trick really is how to engage those 3 pillars of customer engagement, and how to sync the customer journey and engagement levels and personalization across those pillars. We really focus on business uplift. When I run workshops, it is not about move this a pixel to the left or to the right. It's about how do we personalize around key calls to action that drive revenue, and how can we really ensure that our customers hit those points. And of course, down the track, we've won many awards. We offer the same kinds of capability, albeit focused on revenue, as most agencies. We work very hard with demand generation. We do content strategy and production. We're a very technical company, so we do a lot of work around CMX, our CRM and so forth. And increasingly with things like Sitecore Cortex, we're looking at AI and machine intelligence to help drive those outcomes. Our work does get noticed. We've won Sitecore Site of the Year, and in the last 2 months we won the Marcom Awards for Elevated Digital Client Engagement for WP Carey, who we were able to prove increased interactions with their sales network by 60% using these kinds of technologies, and for Ida Bailey around professional services. So we have some cred in the area, definitely. We believe that CX drives revenue, and we see this every single day, not just in edynamic, but in the world of Sitecore in general. I've worked on projects that increased measurable sales by 60% in a quarter. I've worked on projects that drove 400% more interaction with retail, and so forth down the years working with Sitecore. We know that businesses now expect to compete on customer experience. This is no longer a buzzword. This is an absolutely mandatory scenario, and it's not just business to consumer. Business to consumer might have really evolved this concept of customer experience, but B2B is increasingly critically needing to take this on board, and we'll walk through a few of these stats as we go. So we believe that our companies, according to Forrester, need to be customer obsessed, and that means you have to have a deep knowledge of and engagement with your customers. As I said before, this is not just B2C. In the world of B2B, people who walk into their work in the morning expect the same kind of experiences that they get in their, if you like, civilian life. So 70% of business buyers say it's critical for companies to provide personalization. Forrester say business buyers conduct more than half of their research online before making an offline purchase, and 75% of B2B buyers, according to Gartner, would purchase again from suppliers that offer an omni-channel capability. So it's not just about the website anymore. It's about mobile capability, it's about tablet, it's about email and so forth, and even social in B2B. So we see a whole bunch of reasons why CX kind of fails across an organization. And I just want to address this really quite quickly before we step into how Sitecore can really move around this and orchestrate a fantastic relationship with customers across the board. We see a problem with executive buy-in. We know that customers expect to be engaged in real time, but often the project or the concepts around this are just simply too big. And we believe that many balk because they can't put their arms around the idea. They can't really scope or frame what personalization is, what it means, how it works, whether it drives additional content and so forth. Secondly, we believe that cross-channel is absolutely critical, and certainly Salesforce and those kinds of vendors in all of their research prove that out quite powerfully. So a cross-channel strategy is really important. And thirdly, personalization. The more we know about a customer, the more closely we can target offers and calls to action that will drive them to a revenue point. So going to break that down just a little bit and look at the big three of CX fail outcomes. And the first of these is that most businesses still present a very fractured customer experience. So here's a couple of things to think about here. 9 out of 10 customers will walk away following a poor customer experience and start doing work with a competitor, according to Forrester. Accenture say that $1.6 trillion per annum is the cost of customers switching due to poor experience and service. Salesforce say 75% of consumers expect a consistent experience wherever they engage. And Gartner, interestingly, say by 2020, 85% of customers will have a relationship with an enterprise without interacting with a single human being. So it's incredibly important to orchestrate a cross-channel experience strategy that drives people to outcomes, and then of course to measure those outcomes so that we can understand channel effectiveness, campaign effectiveness, and the ROI of all of our marketing endeavors. The second big problem in most organizations is that the data still lives in silos. The number one investment right now of CMOs across the world is to unify customer data at the platform stack level. Happily, if you're a Sitecore customer, you have XConnect and you have a whole ability to shift out all of the wonderful data captured in Sitecore Experience Analytics and the Experience database to share that with your marketing automation platform, to share that with your CRM. So we really want to unify data at that level. So Adobe say that when they survey customers, half of their organizations say non-integrated tech platforms are the biggest single barrier to running successful marketing campaigns. There are tons and tons and tons of metrics around all of that. So this was an enormous problem, but the evolution of DXP, digital experience platforms like Sitecore, really makes this much easier. And as we move through this, you'll see the trick really here is about knowing what to migrate. So what information you should share across the various pillars of your customer experience technology stack to make sure that that customer experience is orchestrated across channel and of course contributes to lead score and engagement levels so that we can sell really effectively. The third big issue, and this one has been around forever, is that sales are always asking, sorry about that, for high quality leads. And it's not so much improved numbers of leads, it really is a quality thing. So sales and marketing, when they're working in a completely unified way, really drive better outcomes for a customer. Marketing Sherpa say 79% of marketing leads never convert into sales. IDG say 60% of marketers surveyed state that generating high quality leads is their biggest B2B lead gen challenge. So this is an across the board thing. So we believe, and many believe, that targeting, personalization, and segmentation are super important when it comes to shifting lead gen attention from higher quantity to higher quality. So if we can pull all of these three things together, we have an integrated marketing ecosystem that delights customers, delivers the right information, but more importantly, can measure those outcomes. Some companies really get that. We work with American Express, and we rolled out a system very similar to this some time ago. And we managed to put $1.9 billion into their sales pipeline. There was $1.3 million in cost savings through marketing efficiency, and we managed to operationalize their marketing internationally, which basically means that these guys have a demand gen center that really works. Other companies just don't get that customer experience is as big as it is. So we can look at companies like Kodak, you know, a global killer brand. When you thought photography not very long ago, you thought Kodak. They'd been in business for 128 years, and incredibly, Kodak actually owned the patent for digital photography, and somehow completely missed the customer experience angle, that people didn't want to take a roll of film into a chemist or a shop to have it produced anymore. They wanted it now, and they wanted to own that entire process. So companies get it, companies don't get it. And one of the reasons that I think companies back away from this is that there's been, you know, years and years of conversation now around this concept of big data. And that just screams complexity, and it screams long projects. And whenever I hear a consultant say it's a journey, I immediately think they have no idea where the end of this journey is. So we really wanted to boil down this concept of big data to the key principles that really affect revenue and customer outcomes. When you think about the largest companies on the face of the earth, they operate on a managed scorecard, and that managed scorecard very rarely has more than 7 to 10 items on it. So we really concentrate on removing all of the extraneous noise from marketing, and share and record the things that mean the most to business. And as we go through the morning, you will see that very clearly. Edynamic has generated a roadmap to get to the revenue engine, and it starts down in the left quadrant with traditional operations today. So you may have a fantastic CMS like Sitecore, but you're using it in a publishing era mindset, and we want to shift that very quickly to an engagement era mindset. You might have traffic analytics, and these are very much metrics around deliverability of eyeballs and deliverability of emails and those kinds of things, but they don't measure the actual conversion or engagement. A lot of marketing automation systems are bought. They're very, very sophisticated, but they're still used as marketing shotguns, where the same message goes to the same person, to the entire audience, month after month after month. Lots of companies are doing ad hoc social stuff and building out landing pages. We believe to get to the revenue engine, you need to do the one thing that really is a quick business win with Sitecore, and that is to simply turn on its analytics so that you can start to measure campaigning and conversion ROI across the website. We start with easy rules-based personalization to drive optimization. And of course, we want to know who is on our website in real time. So profiling becomes really important. And we will always have monumentally important calls to action on the website. And those are the clear and obvious places where we would start A/B testing. edynamic has a process called time to value that takes your traditional website to the website vision that Sitecore is intended to be. And we can do this inside 30 days because we keep it incredibly focused on business outcomes, and we build a program of work, or a project if you like, that can be executed very, very quickly. So we do the entire consultancy around this, we write a recommendations report, and then we implement that on the website. And all of a sudden, you're halfway there to recognizing and realizing the return on investment that Sitecore can deliver, and the return on investment that is the driver of why you bought such a brilliant platform. To turn that then into the revenue engine is not a huge step. So Sitecore alone is not the answer to marketing success. Although you could argue that with version 9 you have very strong marketing automation built into the solution, and you could also argue that the information captured in XDB could easily be pulled out using XConnect into a marketing dashboard using Power BI or a similar tool to drive the revenue realization. But the three things at a high level that we believe is required to do this incredibly successfully is an integrated CMS like Sitecore to optimize and catch people and increase conversions. There's a reach out component, which is typically marketing automation, where we capture funnel stage, lead score, and all of that. And of course, at the end of the day, none of these customer metrics should be stored as a single point of truth in any of these operational systems. They should be fed through to a CRM so that we can track that a campaign was generated, people landed on that campaign and they converted, measured by Sitecore. So we have the deliverability metrics of the marketing automation platform in conjunction with the conversion metrics of Sitecore, and all of that information should go into a CRM so it can be aligned with a close that will occur often in business to business and business to consumer in the offline environment. So to put this really simply, marketing automation is your pitcher. It's how you deliver marketing messaging to all manner of recipients via social, via email, and so forth. Sitecore is the engine that catches and then optimizes to drive conversions to the highest point possible. And then this information should literally belong in a CRM, although subsets of that information are shared between all of these three systems. In the business to business world, imagine the salesperson who gets all of that previously invisible and incredibly rich customer data that is generated via marketing automation and platforms like Sitecore, and have visibility of that inside their CRM. What campaigns a prospect undertook, what goals, what engagement value they have, what their lead score is, so that they can effectively triage their sales time to chase after the prospects that are most likely to convert and are going to have the highest economic value of their conversion. So when you break this down, we really want to avoid huge amounts of complexity. So I've kept this pretty simple, and I've built this around the concept of an insurance company. So on the left, we have the triangle under the marketing automation platform, and I spend a lot of time working with companies, and I see that they have an incredibly sophisticated marketing automation tool, but they really don't use it very effectively. So if we wanted to take the first step to this, you could just break the nurturing and the outbound into three stages: cold lead, warm lead, and hot lead. And you may only build 2 nurture flows per each of those. Then you have Sitecore. And of course, we measure Sitecore engagement value, and this engagement value pyramid should be pretty familiar to all of you who are Sitecore users. So this is the customer journey. If we start at the top, a new prospect might come and read an article, they might download a white paper. They're an unknown user at this point still. Oops, pardon me. And we don't know very much about them, but they're very much at top of funnel. From a strategy perspective, what we want to do nearly as quickly as we can is to turn that person into a known user. And sometimes we offer gated content. Log in here to see a more in-depth white paper or a customer case study or something like that. And we want them to sign up to a newsletter so we have the electronic commercial right to market to them. if we can move somebody from the cold lead, read article, download white paper stage of their engagement into warm lead, we have the ability to then market to that customer across channels. And of course, they become a higher value lead to us, and they move from unknown to known. So that's kind of super important to us. Then what we want to do is take them from that known status and move them to the bottom of the funnel. So if somebody subscribes in an insurance world to some gated content, what we would probably want them to do is to start interacting with the tools on our website. Because if we put something like a quote calculator on an insurance website, for example, it's not just a toy for them to get personal information just for them. We should be feeding that information back into these systems so we know the value of that customer. So just using a quote calculator in this example tells us whether they're a high net worth prospect, whether they're a mid-worth prospect, or whether they're a low net worth prospect, which is all super important stuff. And at that point, we have enough data to trigger a hot MQL. Now, a salesperson might be alerted in the earlier stages that there is somebody of importance on the website because of course, Sitecore can track IP and the business and brand name associated with that IP. And a salesperson might have a watching brief, but the system should never trigger an MQL until they have done very bottom of funnel activities and triggered the goals and engagement values in alignment with their lead score and marketing automation to deliver a real, true MQL to a particular customer. So let's take a quick look at how that would work and what kinds of things that we would do in each of those segments of a lead, if you like. So we've broken this down into objectives, strategy, tactics, data, and the technology. So at the top of the funnel, we're looking at CMS, we're looking at new unknown prospects, and we really want to convert those to known leads that can be nurtured. And we typically use AdWords, banner advertising, personalized website journeys, gated content, and so forth to do that. And what we're trying to do is collect enough data to make a meaningful story across all three of these channels so that our customers get that consistent experience that the marketing analysts say is so critical. In the middle of the funnel, we really want to start moving those people up the Sitecore engagement value scoring system. And we want to build in goals and events that trigger lead scores so that we can know that a prospect is warming up. And once we drive them to the bottom of the funnel, it's really about turning that MQL into something that can become a sales accepted lead. If you can have your sales organization happy with the detail and quality of leads you deliver, you're halfway towards generating revenue. The other part of this, of course, is connecting the CMS so that you can measure actual closes of business and understand when a customer goes from a prospect to an existing customer, because nearly always you will then want to increase wallet share and so forth. So let's take a look at an example in real time of how this might work. So we have our same three pyramids there, and we have underneath it the big question mark. And what we need to do where that question mark is create a real strong view of who this customer is, what products they like, how we can cross and upsell them, where they are in their lead score, so that we can market to them effectively. So in this particular example, a company has put out on LinkedIn or on some social network a nurture article. So this is kind of we do insurance, we do motor insurance, for example, learn more. At that point, because the information is being shared across all three of these systems, they're noted as being a top of funnel lead. It's too soon to try and sell ultra heavily to them. So what we want to do is drive them to a personalized website experience that aligns the intent of that article with the very first thing they see. So if this was, say, motor insurance, then they should see, and the website should personalize around a motor insurance article. So they hit a landing page. They are now an unknown prospect. They are on our website, and all of their activity is being recorded in all three of these systems. And of course, we use Sitecore engagement analytics to understand that they've read an article. They haven't scored any engagement value points at this stage, but we're recording this as a 0 value goal because we want to understand and measure the customer journey. So let's say this marketing automation piece was around home insurance. We can extrapolate, for example, that they've read an article around home insurance and that is what they're interested in. We don't know exactly who they are yet, but their profile is iteratively building over time. A second nurture goes out. And this one is around reading and downloading a white paper. And if we know their profile is around home insurance, we should be pointing them at a white paper that they haven't previously seen on the website that fits that. So the marketing piece is all around download white paper. And of course, we record that they've done that as well. So we have some interaction with this customer right now. We know a little bit about their profile, but they're still a completely unknown prospect. What we want to do now is really drive this person to middle of funnel. And the way we do that is to personalize the website upon the download of that white paper to say we have some gated content that shows you that you can bundle perhaps home and car insurance and save money. You know, enter your email address to learn more. So when we do that, we're starting to get some goals fired. So we now have access to their email address because we've typically asked for that to give them access to the gated content. So we have an increasingly clear view of who our customer is, but at this point, it's still a little bit murky. All we have really is an email address and some information on what we believe their interest is. We have however, captured their email address and we've moved them to the middle of the funnel. So it's really important to understand that we've now taken a customer from an unknown state to a known state. This is an enormous step in the marketing ecosystem and the market journey, if you like. We now would probably ask these people to subscribe to a newsletter, but that newsletter cannot just be generic. It really should at this point be around home insurance. It should be targeted at the right segment, and it should contain absolutely important information to this person. It's incredibly dangerous in this day and age of engagement to send a one-size-fits-all newsletter to your customer base, and maybe this person gets a completely irrelevant newsletter under the old model. They might open one of them, they might open the second one, but they surely will not open the third one if they believe that this information has no relevance to them whatsoever. So we send out a call to action, or we personalize the website to change the hero image to really drive them to sign up to a newsletter. And we make sure that they understand that this newsletter will be highly targeted to their interests and needs. And this newsletter will be designed to show them how to save money and increase wallet share for the organization. So we've now subscribed to a newsletter. We have a slightly clearer picture of who our customer is, but we still have not driven them to the hot lead or bottom of funnel component of this. And our next steps are really important. We have, because this person has gone from an unknown user to a known user, for the first time given them a lead score. But it is quite a low lead score. We haven't got them to the point where they've contacted sales, or they've used a quote calculator, or they've triggered a Sitecore goal that suggests that they've moved to the part of the engagement model that should trigger an MQL. As I said, a salesperson might be watching this entire journey, but they're not going to pounce just yet. If we get this exactly right, it's kind of like when you walk into a store and that store lets you have the time to look around before a salesperson is breathing down your neck. So we want to introduce sales at exactly the right time and in context of what that customer is doing. What we want to do now, of course, is move them to bottom of funnel. So we really want to move this person from being in decision-making mode to actually making that decision and reaching out and telling us more about their life and their needs. So we might send out either via an email or back to social another nurture to these people, but this time it would be about use our quote tool, because the quote tool in insurance is an enormous driver of engagement. And it's incredible to me how many people build quote tools that just display information on the screen when somebody's executed it. If you think about this, they're telling you what they want. They're telling you how much money they have to spend, and that information really needs to be piped back into the CRM, and that information really needs to mandate what they should see next on a personalized website and what they should see via personalized social and personalized email marketing. So the campaign works. They're driven back to the quote calculator on the page, straight from the outbound piece, and they use that quote tool. That quote tool really should trigger information about them. So fed into the CRM is that this customer is interested in a high value bundle. They're looking for a one-stop shop in this particular example, and they would be interested in bundling their home and car insurance. Obviously, this saves them money, but it increases the revenue, the measurable revenue of the company driving this. So we would assign at this point a higher lead score, a lead score of perhaps 5. So right now, this is probably triggering some kind of indicating to the salesperson sitting behind this that's going to close this deal that this person is really moving towards a high net worth deal for us, and we should focus on this as a priority. So the next thing that we would surface really heavily on the website is that it is time to contact sales. When I look at website design, and this I think is just an artifact of the past, you tend to see all of this heavy duty information above the fold of a website, but then you go down and you scroll down and typically you see contact as a really small call to action on the bottom of the page. This is not a strong way to drive people to a call to action. At this point, the entire hero image of this particular website and everything they get in terms of nurture should really be about, you've done all of your research, it's time to reach out and for us to get in touch. If they do that, it is of course assigned as a goal on the website. We know that they've contacted sales, we know that they've used the quote calculator, and just this information should be pushed over to the MQL status. And you'll notice this isn't about thousands of pieces of data. This is about 5 or 6 key goals in the customer journey. It's about no more than 6 pieces of nurture streams being generated. The important thing is that these are all happening in orchestration and in symphony to drive a customer to this point where we have a lead score of 10 and an actual MQL is generated. We now have a very, very clear view of who this customer is. We understand the campaigns they've been a part of, we understand what their budget is, and we understand enough about the content that they've consumed to have them profiled in terms of what their product interest is and what their product needs is. So a salesperson who walks into a lead report every morning who sees this level of data is actually going to be incredibly pleased with the marketing department that generated that. Not only is it a real MQL, it is a real MQL that is being delivered with exactly the right information for a salesperson to have a highly relevant and highly targeted conversation with that particular prospect. And this is not too hard to do. I was literally working last week with a company and taking them through this example, and one of the things that came out of the workshop was that the actual measurements and the amount of data that needs to be shipped between these systems is really quite small. We can do an enormous amount with a subset of key business and conversion metrics rather than trying to boil the entire ocean. So if we do this, we all of a sudden quite quickly have 3 of our absolute priority systems in the marketing ecosystem personalizing and working in symphony so that every piece of communication a customer sees across channels drives them to a conversion point. And of course, because we are measuring lead score and we are measuring engagement value, and then aligning that and connecting that with an actual sale through the CRM, we can prove the marketing effectiveness of our personalization opportunities and efforts. We can prove the marketing effectiveness of the channels that we utilize, whether that was LinkedIn or whether that was Facebook, and we can absolutely measure the success of individual campaigns, because Sitecore offers us all of that capability very much out of the box. Otherwise, you're overcomplicating this, and gives us a really clear path for the first time to get a line of sight view of customer behavior, conversion, need, and success across all three of these MarTech stacks. Super important stuff. So the most important outcome of this is to get all of these channels working in complete symphony. This aligns with the agenda of every CMO on the face of the earth today. And they're battling with these outcomes. And sometimes it's because they're making the battle too big. So stepping back and thinking about those core conversion metrics and the things that you would measure to keep the lights on and to shift the revenue needle north are the things that you really need to focus your strategy around. And when you undertake this exercise, all of the stakeholders that are in the room are in absolute alignment with what needs to be measured. And when we know what needs to be measured, we can absolutely mandate that our personalization and our optimization strategies are in alignment with that and drive customers to those key conversion points. So what we're talking about is the kind of stuff that edynamic has done before. As I said, marrying the MarTech stack is incredibly important. We've undertaken that with Amex, where we did a lot of workshops and strategy work around what their marketing automation stack kind of looks like, what the experience stack looks like, and then working out what those in customer engagement and lead score levels are to make sure that we're scoring the right stuff, understanding who is on our website, and driving a single view of the customer so that we can really focus on positive outcomes. We also did much the same stuff for WP Carey, where we integrated Eloqua, their marketing automation platform, with Sitecore and their CRM Salesforce, and also Google Analytics. So when all of these three things were actually, or four things were being measured, we were able to understand the business outcomes of this. So financial advisors who engage with marketing campaigns were 3 times more likely to sell a fund. That's a significant increase in business. They were 60% more likely to sell another product in the future. Email traffic went up because, of course, the site is relevant. And when you make a personalized, relevant site, you are training people to come back to that site. If you are not doing this, regardless of how many times you refresh the content, you're still training people that the site is just a billboard or a publishing era artifact. And click-through traffic to the website and the marketing campaigns increased by 26% because it's relevant. We did very much the same thing with a company called Hexagon. So they wanted to understand a single view of the customer. They wanted to share customer data across all of those key points, and we integrated Sitecore with Pardot and Salesforce, including a migration from Eloqua. So we've been there and done that and have the outcomes to prove it. The revenue engine is a metaphor, if you like, or no, it's more than a metaphor. It's now a clearly defined framework to take you from having Sitecore. Maybe you've just done your first lift and shift. Maybe you've had Sitecore for a couple of years. But what most people are thinking at this point is, how do I get the maximum value out of the system? And of course, you have to engage with Sitecore Analytics in order to prove that. So what we are talking about is digital marketing transformation, but undertaken in a time frame that is not 18 months. When we talk now to CMOs, we understand that they typically have 100-day kind of time frames in order to evidence change in their organization. So a new CMO coming in knows that that first 100 days is absolutely critical. And the idea that within that 100-day time frame, you could marry data and the customer experience across the key parts of their MarTech stack, and you could build out the analytics that absolutely prove marketing, channel, and campaign effectiveness is a really logical first step. as that CMO role evolves from what it is today through to a role that is absolutely dependent on proving and increasing revenue increases and core business conversions across the website. So that, in a nutshell, is the revenue engine. It's a fast, structured methodology to align your customer experiences and to measure marketing success across every channel. And, you know, we would think that on the end of this, we would be pushing data even out of the CRM into BI systems so that you could do a huge amount of ad hoc marketing reporting. So what I would like to leave you with is that this is important. Right now, it is the coin of the realm, turning a bunch of poor MQLs into highly qualified, highly successful sales accepted leads, and then being able to connect that with deal close is probably the most important thing that you can undertake today. And we can do this very, very quickly, so that it is not just a nice thing that you can have on your roadmap that stretches off into infinity. You can put a definitive end date on this by focusing on absolutely key business outcomes. I'd love to throw the floor open to questions. If anybody has some, I would be very, very happy to answer them.
Okay, so Greg, we have a couple of questions on the chat. So the first one is from Dave. Do you recommend using Sitecore for marketing automation or using a third-party solution like Marketo? Isn't it better to have both of the functionality under one roof?
That's a really great question. We come across this all of the time. So I do walk into customers that have Marketo, Par.Eloqua, they have that set up. And, you know, I'm not suggesting a rip and replace scenario here. So if that is set up and it is functioning and your staff is trained in using it and, you know, you're happy with that system, it is no longer difficult to integrate the marketing outcomes between that and Sitecore. On the flip side, I've been with Sitecore for a very long time, or had been with Sitecore for a very, very long time, and saw the evolution of email and the evolution of the marketing automation piece inside Sitecore. And honestly, hand on heart today, if I did not have an Eloqua or a Marketo and I had Sitecore, I would be thinking very, very, very positively about upgrading to Sitecore 9.1 and utilizing the marketing automation stack that comes with Sitecore. And here's the reason why. The analytics are integrated natively. So there's no integration piece, no matter how big or small. It's one connected ecosystem. And remember, we're not talking about creating an epic boil the ocean approach here for the revenue engine. We're talking about maybe 6 nurture flows, 2 each across top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel. And the other reason I really like being able to utilize the Sitecore tool set is that you are able to segment customers natively inside Sitecore using the marketing automation piece, by which I mean you don't have to integrate again. So if I undertake middle of funnel activity and I'm using Sitecore's marketing automation platform, then my profile is automatically shifted to show that my lead score is X and that I am now in a middle of funnels segment.
Okay. Greg, we have another one from Lisa. How do I balance quick wins with long-term goals? I want to ensure we don't slow down or halt at the expense of a long-term roadmap.
Okay, that makes all kinds of sense too. Obviously, there's a roadmap going into the future, but if you try to build a project around a long-term roadmap, you're going to really struggle, in my view, to get buy-in. Boards and stakeholders want to see quick business wins. So when we run that first workshop, time to value, it's not typically just with the web team. We really involve the executives from business development, the executives from marketing, all of the executives that have business level outcomes that they need to report. So we work through their long-term vision, but in this first instance, the most important thing for them to do is to align on and agree why this website and why this marketing exists. And it's always interesting to me when I do individual interviews with stakeholders, I will get 15 different answers as to why this website exists and what this website should achieve. And it's very difficult for a marketing company to build an all moving, all dancing outcome around so many goals. So by running that workshop, we really pare it back to initially the things that will drive business value, and then of course it can be expanded to fold in social amplification and other things. But the first thing that we want to do is make sure that we can prove revenue utilizing those marketing technology stacks. So there is always one eye on the long-term roadmap, but what we want to do is deliver business wins very, very quickly, like time to value as a 30-day kind of outcome, and then essentially it's measure outcomes for maybe a business quarter, and then, you know, reinvestigate or even reinvigorate the CX strategy around real data.
Right. Yeah, I think that is it. We don't have any more questions in the chat box unless anyone wants to type in a question now. We'll just stay back for a minute or so to see if there are any more questions coming in. But thank you everyone for joining us, and we hope you have a great day ahead. Oh, we have another question that just popped in
Okay,
from
awesome.
Carla. She's saying that she has a question, so we'll wait for her to type in. Okay.
Sure, no problem at all. The other thing I might say while we're waiting for this question is that we will follow this up with a revenue engine ebook. I encourage you all to read that. Obviously, in you know, the time frame of 45 minutes, there's only so much we can cover. It is a comprehensive ebook and really lays out why and how you would get there, and it'll be a very important tool to socialize around inside your marketing and executive structure.
Um, So Julian has a questions. Will we be sharing the slides? Yes, we will be sending over a recording of this webinar along with the slides.
Hang on a sec, Paresh. I've got the question. I can see it now. And a particular Sitecore customer has Microsoft Dynamics set up and wants to know how easy it is to combine the analytics. And it's a really good question and has a really good answer. Sitecore has a Microsoft Dynamics connector in existence. So we're not, remember, so that firstly, technically, pushing the data into MS Dynamics is not difficult, complex, or expensive. What's really important to do is to sit back and say, and to work out what data you want to push into Microsoft Dynamics. And you know, Microsoft Dynamics will contain a whole lot of customer data about addresses and all of that sort of stuff. What should, in my view, be pushed across is their engagement value score, their lead score, and their profile. If you just pushed those three pieces of data across into Microsoft Dynamics, you have a much richer view of the level of engagement and the level of conversion of that customer. And I would probably seriously consider taking that further to include what campaigns they have been a part of, so that we get a view of the kinds of things that interest them long term, and their segment, so where they are in that lead nurture segment. So we're probably talking about, honestly, less than 10 pieces of data. So that should not be overly complex. Hopefully that helps. So I think, Paresh, that's the last of the questions.
yes, I think that is it.
Yeah. So the good news on top of that, of course, is that if you're using Salesforce, that connector exists. And I guess regardless of the CRM that you use, with XConnect now, we can very easily extract the experience database information and the experience analytics information. So there is nothing stopping us from populating literally any CRM with any kind of connectivity or API with Sitecore. Great stuff. Again, thank you, everybody. I've really appreciated, and keep your eye out for the Revenue Engine ebook. It really is a powerful piece. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.